EdTech is one word. I am always looking forward to discussing it, debating it, seeing the pros and cons. Now it's been or just a little more than that, 4 years now that we have been playing with this word. We have a lot of industry people, principals, college directors have invested their time debating it. What are some of the cons and pros? In today's discussion, we are here to discuss how far we have covered, what is required to be done to see that magical-like revolution of EdTech in K-12, and what are some of the contradictory opinions across the board. What majorly EdTech has done to teachers, has done to students. We are here with a very eminent panel, though it's a panel, it's all males panel, but we are here to discuss what has EdTech done to schools broadly. Now, India is a country where one of the largest population in K-12. It is our responsibility to discuss it, what can be some of the objectives that are yet to be met. Now, panelists, in your opening remarks, I want to understand from you, in the last 5 years, we have been listening about EdTech in different shapes and forms. Without restricting it to your own schools, tell me, how have you observed and what are some of the key trends that you must have observed in schools, how it has shaped teachers and students largely? Anybody can start. You want to? It is.
Yeah.
This work.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So I think EdTech is a great space to be in right now with a big policy like the NEP coming in, because what it really does is a policy like NEP coming in gets schools across India to start feeling that there's something that needs to change. And just that feeling is very important for EdTech to really penetrate into the Indian school ecosystem. And India has always been a country where there is scarce resource in the teaching space. I think it is very early days. There are very few companies who are really doing some amazing work in the EdTech space, because it's like a very challenging sort of a space, I feel. Because when you develop any product, like a physical product, you do a lot of R&D in the product development. A lot of times we see that in the EdTech space, we don't do so much research in that product. So a lot of times, the first few schools are where the testing happens. And there's not a lot of transparency that the product is not yet built. In the education space, I understand that whatever happens is through a lot of word of mouth. And because in the EdTech industry, when you're in that space of R&D, when you're actually testing out a product over children, and 2 years, 3 years down the line, I personally have noticed that a lot of the EdTech companies fail to invest and be patient in that journey. And that is something which I look forward to seeing in the EdTech space as it really grows further.
Good one. How many of you have children who are in K-12 across India? Okay. Now, we are right now sitting in National Capital of India, Delhi. A lot of us are, with the demographics of it, with the facilities available across us, we are kind of privileged, if I can say so. Now, tell me, panelists, I'm coming to you, Rajesh, what's happening in the other parts of the world? Is EdTech really an equalizer? We get to hear contradictory opinion on how EdTech is unintentionally building a digital divide. How are we seeing this? What are some of the observations you must have had? And tell me what's happening in the other part of the world.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. So basically, if you talk about EdTech, I see there are two parts to it. One part which is now global, like acceptable all over the country, is about these the digital learning media. Like more of we talk about started with Byju's, then going to physics. Well, at this point of time, which people are just getting access, but it's basically at the bottom of it, it's an online tutoring system, be it with a teacher or be it with a video. So that is something I see definitely it has been gone across the country, irrespective of where it is, a big metro or a small town. But when it comes to the other part of it, where actually EdTech is supposed to create an impact, is about the adaptive learning, is about giving the students based on what they are today. Because when you talk about EdTech, it was more of giving a personalized learning. But when it comes to this regular, the digital tutoring system, which coming from the companies at this point of time, are again the same thing, tutoring with the same kind of pace going to each and every student. But when it comes to the personalized learning, where the adaptive methodology you're talking about, that is definitely creating a digital divide in terms of when in a small town their cost is high and not everybody can afford it. Not even as a school also, I cannot say that I can implement for each and every student because our fees doesn't support if you have to give it from the school perspective. And from a student, the acceptance will not be there because the belief is still there, then why do you have a teacher at school? Right, so cost is definitely a factor. So in the small places, definitely the actual usage of EdTech is not that getting enter into, but the traditional method of EdTech, which is another form I will say of the technology teaching, that is definitely getting through.
Mr. Kukreja, your opening remarks before we get into the details of it.
So, good morning, everyone. I think I somewhere agree with what Mr. Rajesh just mentioned, and from where you started. EdTech as a word is a very globally used term, but India, with its diversity across the nation, whether it is tier 1 cities, tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, right, has very different kind of needs across the spectrum, right? So what EdTech is doing in Mumbai, Delhi, Hyderabad, Bangalore is not what EdTech is capable of doing in a tier 2 city or a tier 3 city, right? So cost being one factor, the access to basic devices and internet being another, the infrastructure, and too many things. So that is something which is, really a cause to be addressed. And like Siddharth mentioned, the product development itself needs to be a lot more deeper. So yes, COVID gave a big push to the edtech space in India, where everybody started talking about it. But has it really made inroads into the grassroots level classrooms and the students and the schools, etc.? I think that's still a little far-fetched.
How
Yes,
far? How far?
quite far off. So NEP, like said, it's a very nascent stage. It's still a policy document. We've not even come to an operational document of it, right? We are talking about experiential learning. We're talking about internships, and we're talking about whatnot. But as a society, like you asked the audience, how many of you have a K-12 kid? How many of you are really looking for your child to go into an internship and not clear the 10 poor examination with the 99% marks? So the mentality of the society, mentality of a parent, the expectation of a parent, and the overall ecosystem. I mean, even today, when you're sitting and you're talking to a parent who's got a teenager preparing for their 11th, 12th exams, what is he looking up to? He's probably looking up to an IIT, JEE, CA. The world is still limited there. And that's the reason the entire rat race. So with the entire conceptual understanding and everything that the edtech industry is trying to project, that okay, it can help you immersive learning, it can help you conceptual learning, cognitive development, this, that, and whatnot. So barring apart the product issues which are there, even if we have some beautifully designed products, internationally acclaimed and internationally accepted and promoted, yet the entire society and a community, are we ready for it? That's the question. Byju's did come in the COVID period. It was adapted left, right, and center. But if you look at the graph, the pace at which the entire thing went up, it's probably fizzled down at double the pace, right? So the society is still in that old mindset that all right, a conventional classroom is exactly where the learning happens, and that's to a very large extent true. Because it needs a complete change of the ecosystem, and that's not just in India, even abroad. So if you talk about countries like US, Europe, all these countries, I was again coming across thing, Netherlands in a couple of years ago shifted to all tablet mode. 5 years down the line, they've come back to the traditional classroom. Why? Because they saw that, okay, this is not helping, then the overall cognitive development of the children and the society thing has gone down. So is this something which is the way forward? There are question marks to it. Not that we are writing it off completely, but it needs a lot more holistic fixing up of various issues, and then probably we'll be able to come up. So to me, just to sum it up the entire thing, I think we are still in an exploration mode. We are still in a discovery mode. It's a very nascent thing. I mean, the child is not even born. It's still in the womb, and we're trying to figure out what is it that needs to be done with it.
All right, I'll come back to you. While I understand there are some facets to it, but I'll come back to you. What is actually needed to pace up? Now, coming to you, Mr. Singh, India is a vast canvas, and I agree with both of the panelists saying every city, every school has different set of needs. Every student, every teacher has a different set of needs, because we're yet to see a mindset shift. Yeah. Now, today is the time where we are seeing children entirely studying from their tablet or devices or mobile phones. They're not reading from their books. There are a set of people, students. In your opinion, tell me, what is happening to a student because of EdTech, because of online learning? It may be helping some of the lots, but entirely, if we kind of shift to online or EdTech based learning, what will happen? So far, what has EdTech done to students?
Thank you for this question. And I come from a school background.
And that to a boarding, huh?
Yeah, in a boarding school. And that's why whatever I'm going to share is the actual real ground experience. If we I just take the COVID time, when suddenly 100% of the educational system got switched over to the online mode. Teachers were not prepared, system was not ready, but very soon we all learnt the tricks of the trade and we started implementing it for close to 2 years. And when schools reopened and students were back to campuses, now I found that, and it is not, when I say I found, means it's the feedback from all the teachers and from multiple schools. So the input which came is that the cognitive ability of the children, there was a drop. They were very impatient. We are now talking of taking the mental well-being of the child, the prime consideration and concern for in any educational setup. Now all these indicators showed a very clear drop. And the child was in care of the parent, all right, within the father and the mother. Nobody was going out of home. So they were under a very clear supervision of the parent. And a parent has to handle maybe 1 or 2 or 3 children. So with that kind of closed monitoring, when the parent is providing the resource, and the schools were on the guiding mode, the schools were passive, the active participation was from the parent. They could not control it. And when these students, when they came back to campuses, there was a lot of issues. Now it has taken almost 3 years now to fizzle out all these issues, but still there are some signatures of it still visible. So I'm not very sure that if we just switch over 100% to technology, it is going to resolve all the issues. But at the same point of time, I cannot keep my eyes closed with the technology developing around, and it is changing the entire way we live. If I have to buy a cup of tea even from a roadside and I'm not carrying cash, the technology has enabled that man, that thelawala, to charge you. There is no issue on that. So if technology can reach to that level, probably as teachers and educators, we need to find out a different mechanism. How do we deploy technology to enhance the learning outcome for the child so that the child is prepared for that future, because that future, the workforce will be driven and decided by technology completely. So it's a tug of war. We are all trying different hit and trial methods. And every institution, every educator is trying to give the best to their students so they are prepared for that future. On that principle, we are all working, and I'm hopeful. Thank you.
Good to know that you're hopeful, but can you give us precise pointers on what are some of the challenges that you are seeing when there is an integration of online learning or let's say EdTech in schools with students?
I will take the first question, all right, and connect with this one. I started teaching in 91. And when I passed
I
out,
wasn't even born then.
so when I passed out from the university and decided to be a teacher, there was one computer system in the school, and we used to just, it was under lock and key. So we used to just admire it from outside that there is some machine which is called computer and it can do anything. That was the perception. So when this device was given to us, when we got few more, we started making the class nominal rolls and entering marks in that device. That is where we started. And now we have reached to that extent where we have got ERP solutions for school, where the entire school can be managed, monitored effectively with precise data. So when as a class teacher, when I used to prepare result, it used to be half-yearly examination, then annual examination, then you have to carry certain weightage of marks to the final exam. One mistake and that tabulation sheet has to be torn off and you have to create the new. It was quite painful. With data, what happened with computers, the data entering is periodic. You cannot tamper with the data. So there is a lot of time saving. There is accuracy which is there. Now that gives me as a teacher a lot of freedom to explore on something where I can bring some creative element into the classroom. Now with AI, like currently in my school, I advise my teachers to create their lesson plans using ChatGPT. All right. Now that is giving, we all talk about a customized teaching approach in the classroom. Now for one teacher, I as a teacher will have a very prominent teaching style. And similarly, a student will have his own learning style. Now if there is a disparity in the two, the learning is not going to happen. But if I as a teacher can approach the student in 5 different ways, so probably I'm catering to the 5 learning abilities. Now ChatGPT, AI, these are the things which is giving a very strong tool in the hands of the teacher. How to reach out to the entire class. You can take very objective tests. You can pinpoint exactly where is the learning difficulty. And if teacher can use these devices and technology, I'm sure that the outcome for the students will be far, far better, which I could not even thought of in 1991.
So we are right now in 1991 2.0. We're still exploring what's working, what's not. Rajesh, are teachers being able to use EdTech well? Technologies, we are again, I'm reiterating that we are sitting in national capital. It can be different from what's happening in other regions and maybe deeper regions. Rajesh, tell us how teachers are playing with EdTech.
See, one good thing about the teachers, I'll say, at least in my school, I have the average age of the teachers are less than 30. We have all young teachers. So at least one good thing is that they understand the technology, but that technology is more from using mobile and the different apps in mobiles. So definitely there is a big effort in terms of making them understand how the technology works. And when you talk about technology works, it's not about using an app. I think the difference about knowing how to operate a mobile and how to operate the technology for the purpose of education is completely different. So implementation of any EdTech tool that you're talking about has to be, and they have to understand the purpose behind it, they have to understand how is it being used and why is it being used. So that takes a lot of effort. Definitely, like in my place, we have teachers who are mostly people who want to be a teacher, for basically want to be a government teacher and may not be getting a government job, so they're coming to private schools. That is the primary landscape. So each one of them, may have done it like a computer course of 6 months or 12 months, but we have to actually start from scratch of teaching them the basics of technology, even how to use properly Word, Excel and all those. So from there, teaching them how to implement the technology in the classroom environment takes a lot of effort. So I will not say that we get teachers who are ready. They are still in the mode of going into the classroom and teach the normal old method. But to make them understand, it is definitely a huge effort from a school perspective. But only advantage is because of the age, they pick up very quickly and are able to move forward with it.
Good one, good one. We now understand with given inputs that the way forward is hybrid. We cannot write off EdTech completely or online completely, but we are, I mean, there are many inputs from industry leaders that the physical classrooms are really, really important. Now, Mr. Kukreja, we're talking about, just before the panel, we were talking about there is stats and data that there's a 40% drop in enrollments in quota for tuitions, for trainings in students. Now, this is alarming. Now, a lot of students across the cities have switched to their online teaching classes, coaching classes, the physics walas of the world, many other tutors online. Now, students are loving it. Students are loving it. Physics wala, and I'm not just restricting to physics wala, there are many other tutors and channels, has great following. What is that they are giving and schools are lacking? Tell me, how is it also hampering their cognitive abilities development? There are different opinions across. There are contours in how people are viewing EdTech's integration in their education system. How are their students learning? How are children learning? Tell me your views on this.
So I think you're making me open the Pandora's box, and I'm likely to make some controversial statements, but
We love it.
maybe
We
if
might
that
get a
helps.
headline for this one.
So it's a complete landscape shift that has probably taken place when we talk about children shifting from quota to thing. And you asked a very right question as to what is it that the schools are not doing. And in that same discussion, when we were discussing with Rajesh sir, he talked about children, I think this is a universal data that you will probably get. Of course, I don't have the numbers ready with me, but I'm sure it is there across India. Schools have become relevant only till class 10 today. Yeah, if you go to any part of the country today, whether you are in Mumbai, Pune, Hyderabad, Bangalore, or smallest town in the city, in the country, there is a significant number of drop in the number of students from class 10 to class 11. And why is that happening? Because the children are running towards coaching classes to ensure that they get a good seat in an engineering college or a medical college or something. Why are they in the school till class 10? Because there's a board exam. If you get rid of that board exam today, believe me, the schools will get empty at class 5 or 6. Yeah, because most of the coaching classes, whether Fidzis of the world or Physics Walas or Byju's and whatever, all of them are running, they have now started coming up with an integrated program from class 5 onwards, 7 onwards, 9 onwards. It's a parent's majburi to keep the child in class 10 because he has to come for a board exam. You get rid of that board exam and you will see a landmine shift in the entire education framework of this country. Yeah, so that is something which is still holding the school ecosystem. Yeah, that is one. Why are they rushing towards it? Because let's understand, we talked about India being a country with a lot of scarce resources, right? And most of the booming cities that we have today, right, the biggest economies, right, we still don't have $1 trillion economy city in the country, but we are catching up. So Mumbai, Pune, Hyderabad, each of these are close to around $400 million, etc., billion dollars, etc., where we are. Where exactly is this happening? Day before yesterday, I was in talk with somebody at Pune, and they said Pune has done 1 lakh crores of software export this year. What does that mean? That means that there's a huge demand for software engineers in a city called Pune. Every engineering college, whether you're going for any stream of engineering, the child more often than not lands up into a software industry. Why? Because that's offering you a good quality of life. That's offering you good prospects of a healthy lifestyle and whatever. That is the aspiration of the young generation today. So that is something which the engineering, which the coaching institutes are in a way paving the path for, and the schools are not yet there. Yeah? So that's exactly where the challenge is. right? And now what EdTech has done is to democratize that entire path. The child no longer needs to go and house himself for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years in quota and be under that stress, and the parents are in that space where they don't want the child to be in stress and commit suicides, etc. If the same quality of education, if the same faculty is available on a mobile device, 1,000 miles away, I think I'll be happier doing that. So I've come across a lot of parents who are saying, okay, let's subscribe to this faculty in Kota. In fact, Kota people have started doing this. In Pune, I saw so many hoardings saying that, okay, Kota Institute now in Pune, right? Where they're running, beaming the classes from Kota. So that is probably the EdTech version of it. And that's exactly what's happening. But the problem still lies the overall ecosystem. EdTech is facilitating that part that, all right, we don't need to go 1,000 kilometers away from our hometown to study in Kota, but the quality of education is available. And in fact, now if you'll see most of the IIT results, etc., which are coming, there are a good number of children that you will find who will claim that, okay, I did not go to a coaching class, I studied online and I could crack the exam. So that is one positive aspect of the EdTech that has happened. But is there a real significant positive impact on the grassroots level elementary education inside the school campuses? The answer is a big no. The teachers are not ready. The capacity building programs, NEP of course is a great document. It took them 2 years to build the document. I really wonder if it will be enough to implement that in next 2 decades also. And by that time we will have maybe another document. So with a country of our size and diversity and challenges, there's a huge amount of effort that needs to go into the implementation. And implementation at the grassroots level needs a lot of changes, right from the teachers' quality, teachers' training, the ecosystem, finances, governmental support, and too many things, right? Today, till 2019, if I remember correctly, there used to be a concept of something called as aided schools. The government got rid of that policy in 1999. There are no longer any aided schools. So today the schools which are coming, yes, it's politically very good to say that, all right, government, education is commercialized, schools are fleecing, fees are going high, etc., etc., etc. Nobody's looking at the backside of it. Till 1999, schools were given land for free, building funds were provided, teachers were paid off. So if I had a philanthropic mindset and I wanted to do something for the society as an educationist, I had all the resources provided to do it. Today, if you want to build a school, it will, come to Mumbai, Pune, 100 crores is not enough to build a quality school. The land itself will cost you 60 crores. Where will you get that school campus from? Where will you talk about the physical development, sports facilities, this, that and all? Nothing is available. So while EdTech is doing something great in the individual capacity, where the parent is willing to pay for that, that's great. The same parent, he's willing to pay 2 lakh rupees to a Byju's or an Akash or a Fitzy. But what is the average fee structure of a school in India? Not even 50,000. Forget the top 10 cities, the average fees of a school going child is not 50,000 also. An engineer, working in Bombay, Pune, Hyderabad takes 2 years to reach a salary of 10 lakhs. It takes a lifetime for a teacher to reach a salary of 10 lakhs.
I must say, very well explained, Mr. Kukreja. I'm coming to you, Siddharth. Tell us, I'm not sure about the answer, but are we seeing schools shutting down tomorrow? How are we seeing the whole ecosystem working?
Really.
Because schools are struggling, students are going away from schools, parents are supporting their students, watching and following online tuitions, online training in schools of various subjects. Tell us, how do you see tomorrow?
So to me, I think we discussed this a little bit. But I think, like Sir also talked about, that during COVID, we saw a lot of learning gaps and a lot of learning got struggled, like children struggled in learning. I'll just try and put that in a different perspective. If we put a teacher who is not of high quality in a classroom, still the students will struggle. What actually happened during COVID is all of us started teaching online without that expertise to teach online. So for EdTech to really amplify in schools, I think the larger context, I think Sudhir talked about it a little bit, is to build capacity in teachers. Earlier, a good teacher was at the intersection of pedagogical understanding and content knowledge. A good teacher had these two things. Today, a good teacher is at the intersection of pedagogy knowledge content understanding and tech understanding. That makes a good teacher today. And that's a really, really massive shift that is happening. Even today in like, if you look at the NEP also, it talks about that the B.Ed programs need to really get revamped. And they need to get revamped with a lot of tech coming in. Tech, to my understanding, I am an engineer and somebody who is a core educator as well. So to my understanding, I'm very passionate about EdTech, and we've done extensive usage of EdTech in various spaces. But why a lot of India fail in that is because of lack of capacity building, because of lack of resources, like we talked about. We fail to invest. And why do we fail to invest? Because me and Rita ma'am had gone to a trip in Australia about 6-7 years back, and the government schools in Australia, they spent 8 lakh rupees 6 years back per child. Okay? And what Sudhir is saying, that private schools in India charge 40,000 averagely. Right? So the larger challenge is that. That is the larger challenge. If we are able to figure that challenge out, that is when EdTech or any other space will definitely scale. And also another issue is whenever a new company comes in, just because of finances, any new EdTech company comes in with one agenda definitely is that we want to make money. Right? Money is there in just a few schools. If it gets flipped, right? If an EdTech company comes in with the thought process that I want to make education accessible to the last child in the country, right? And if the Indian government really supports that with the finances, I think there's a lot of possibilities that await us. But it is the finance bit of it which is the underlying problem of the entire ecosystem.
Where will this capital come from?
Sorry?
Where will this capital come from?
Government expected to come from charity.
The government has to, we talked about...
Open for debate, huh?
We talked about earlier there were spaces where there were government aided schools and all of that. There were land available for schools. I think all of that has really stopped, and there's a perception that schools make a lot of money.
Very important point you picked up. Now, Siddharth, if you can give me in 3 points, what are some of the things that is required today? Give me in 3 points.
For EdTech to grow?
Yes.
I think one biggest point is for school leaders to really think of capacity building. For me, we do a lot of capacity building for our teachers, and I can understand why a lot of us don't invest so much in capacity building is because when we invest on our teachers, a lot of times 5 years down the line, a new education institute comes in and just
2 years.
grabs that teacher off.
5 years is too long.
So one fine day a leader starts thinking that, why am I really investing, right? So capacity building is very, very important, but how do we really work around these challenges? Because in every city you will find that there is that one school, okay, which is really working on the teacher development. And you will find that every other school in that city is really built upon that school, right? You will find that across India. Because these are those people in that one school, they're working with that thought process that, it's okay, I'm building the India of tomorrow, right? But the finances have to still work.
You're stuck there, huh? But you have spoken a lot without the points. Rajeshji, now tell me in a bit, before we get to the concluding remarks, students today are facing mental health issues. We have a separate panel on this today at the end of the summit. We are recently seeing a lot of controversies on online channels, a lot of influencers. We saw the recent one that's still going on. A parent or a teacher do not have a control over a student. What he or she is absorbing, what content is he consuming, is she consuming. You don't have a direct check. And how is it impacting their cognitive ability building? How is it hampering their learning ability and the whole set of soft skills? How are you seeing it, and what is that schools can do about it?
Definitely we don't have a control, and specifically the parents don't have a control. And the parents really don't know in terms of what to give or what not to give, where to stop or how much access to be given, because mostly it is available in the mobile devices today. The point here is in terms of like as a school, I think almost all of us ban mobile usage in the school. We don't allow the students to bring mobiles in the school. But at the same time, can we keep the students away from mobile? I don't think that's far-fetched idea. We cannot really separate them anymore, because a 1-month child is starting to live with mobile. We are making them addicted. And how can we come at the age of 6-7 years now, then we say, now you're off the mobile. We are using it as a parent for our convenience in the beginning, and then we are telling now it is not allowed, it's not possible. So we have to look from a school's perspective, how do we make it useful for them? They will watch content. Instead of watching reels, can they watch contents which will make them learn? I think that's the difference a school can make. The school needs to use those tools which the students, like gamified contents, I will say. Students are very much well in playing games in mobile. See, if those companies which are working on creating gamified content from a learning perspective, if schools adopt those and make students a part of it, I think students will develop.
Good one. Mr. Singh, you would want to add to this?
See, schools are not going to shut down. Schools will stay. One problem schools are facing is because our entrance in the higher education is disconnected from what you are doing in the school. For every good college, there is a separate entrance examination, and that's creating a very clear gap. Finally, a student who has to make his career, he wants to get admission in a good college, and the school result is not helping him in any way. So that is why schools are struggling. But I am very sure that it's a bubble for a time being. Because more than your academic excellence, first is your psychological and mental well-being. And parents are soon going to realize that the approach which is currently going in the society across the country, it needs a shift. That is one. As teachers, we need to incorporate technology and leverage it to the best teaching learning process in the classroom. And especially with AI and blockchain, VR, so on and so forth, school needs to learn how to bring these technology in the learning space. That is what is the motive.
So schools and teachers are learning, huh? Good.
And
Mr.
what
Kukreja,
Mr. Siddharth said, capacity building. So I would advise you that, yes, certainly pinch the management, but having a poor teacher in the system is far more detrimental than training him and let that person stay for a short while, whatever duration he is there. And if there is a good relationship between the teacher and the system, all right, the teacher will never leave. All right, that is always a ray of hope there. Thank you.
Good one. Mr. Kukreja, among all the stakeholders, who is responsible to bring about this change?
It's
Tough
really
questions
difficult
to
to
you, huh?
pinpoint a single person out here, but I think I'm back to the same thing. If at all, there's one stakeholder who can impact all the other stakeholders, it's the government. It's the policy level changes which can happen. Of course, the awakening will take time. We are not
And
away.
after the document comes in, we wait for 20 years to the actual implementation.
So honestly speaking, it's really difficult to predict when will that happen. So while we all are deeply rooted into our education system, we all are committed, we are driven by the passion and stuff, we have our own challenges to face, right? So the struggle is at the teachers' end, the struggle is at the management's end, the struggle is at the parents' end. No stakeholder is in a comfort zone. Right, so when Siddharth says management has these financial constraints or the capacity building constraint, the teachers shifting, that is his part of the story. You talk to a teacher, unfortunately in all these conferences, we never invite the teachers. So if you call a teacher, the teacher will tell you her side of the story, right? So the teacher, I mean, if you ask me today, I'm indebted to my teachers for the rest of my life for what they've done for me. I am whatever I am today because of my teachers. But how many of the Gen Z students will talk this language is a big question mark. Right, the classroom respect for a teacher is gone. Parents don't take a fraction of a second to blame the teacher and the management for doing something incorrect to the child. So as a society, that's a deterioration that has happened. So it's no one stakeholder's job or even ability to bring about that change. It's the entire ecosystem which needs to have, like for example, he's saying that today you take that teacher and that teacher is taken away. We are not very far off from the day, maybe it will happen in this decade itself. In fact, it is already happening. There is a serious dearth of quality teachers. And that is the reason the growth of the EdTech industry, right? And so the parents are looking outside the schools that, okay, we might get some better resource there, and they're willing to pay for it. So the same parent who's not willing to pay in the fees is going out and paying a tutor or a EdTech product or anything like that. Why is that happening? Because we're not respecting that teacher inside the classroom. And that's exactly, so it's an overall ecosystem shift. Start paying a teacher equal to the amount that you're paying a top-notch engineer working in a Google or an ICICI bank or something, and you will see that transformational shift that's going to happen. So it's the overall ecosystem, every stakeholder needs to put in their bit, and then maybe you're talking about a better country.
Good one. We're about to see the time's up, but just in 2 seconds, 3 seconds thing, if I and we, all of us, will to build up an ideal classroom tomorrow, what will be one thing that you would want to add? One thing to each, in 1 second.
A teacher who's empowered with technology.
All
a
right.
teacher who knows how to use technology well.
Mr. Singh?
Work ethics.
Work ethics. Rajesh ji?
I'll say mental balance of the students.
Mental balance of the students. Mr. Kukreja?
I've always said this in a lot of conferences. I want to get rid of the textbooks.
I'm looking forward to these classrooms. Thank you so much, panelists, for making time for this. Thank you, audience, for being so patient. Can we have a round of applause for the panel?